Somebody is judging you for the way you dress. Somebody is busy judging you for even the things you upload on your socials. Do you know that? How often do you find yourself judging people wrongly, condemning them? And you don't just even condemn them in your heart, you go along spreading this news of condemnation to everybody. Hello everyone, and welcome to Victorious Living with Juliet. Just in case you're hearing me for the first time, I don't have a microphone today and my voice is a bit cracked because I think I have the cold now. But that regardless, take the message I've brought you today and forget about the cracked voice. So my voice may sound a little bit different from usual if you're used to watching my videos, but just please manage my voice. Do you know that somebody somewhere is busy, very busy, incredibly busy, judging you for the way you talk? Somebody is judging you for the way you dress. Somebody is very busy judging you for the way you live your life. Somebody is judging you for your parenting style. Somebody is busy judging you for even the things you upload on your socials. Do you know that? You may be also one of those who feel judged or who is judged. But the question I have for you today is, are you one of those persons? Tell me the truth. Are you one of those persons? Okay, honesty time. Right. You know, it is very easy for us to sink into judging others, regardless of the Bible's reprimand telling us not to be judgmental of others. Well, I hope that by the end of this series, God will walk through us and help us to be less judgmental of others. Help us to make this world a better place for everybody to thrive. Because judging others has held a lot of people back. I know a lot of people who have been held back because they are scared of being judged. Judge not, that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you shall be judged, and the measure you give shall be the measure you get. That's what the Bible says. And he said, he went ahead to even say, why do you set the speck that is in your brother's eye without seeing the log that is in your own eye? And how can you even say to your brother, let me take away the speck that is in your own eye when there's a log in his eyes, when there's a log in your own eyes? Dear hypocrite, it says, first take the log out of your eye, the lot. So don't get it twisted. There's a place for correction. There's a place for putting people right when they are being misled. There's a place for mentorship, correction, and chastisement as well. So let us not get it mixed up. But for today, we are focusing on judging others wrongly. So you are highly welcome to my series on Judgment Matters. And today, we're going to be delving into the episode 1 on this Judgment Matters. I have titled it, Do You Know the Whole Story? Do you know the whole story? Do you know the whole story? There are some of us who have delved into judging people, myself not excluded. I wouldn't lie, in the past I would be a lot judgmental. Like, there have been situations where I have judged people wrongly, and I'm sure you are no exemption, without knowing the whole story. So before we judge people or condemn people, or let us be sure that we know the whole story. Let us be sure that we know the whole story before you conclude or conclude your opinion about somebody, about something somebody does, or about anything, about anybody, especially when it has to do with anybody. Make sure you know the whole story. I'm gonna bring you a real life example. As promised, on this channel we'll bring you real life inspirational and motivational stories that will transform your life and will help you navigate through life victoriously. There is no way you can live a victorious life without judging others. Because the Bible has already told you that the measure you give, so when you judge others, to come back to you. Like when you point one finger to somebody, four is pointing back to you, okay? So there's no point even pointing fingers. Now, I'll tell you a real life story. 2019, I had my third child, Divine. I call her Didi. She is so divine. So unfortunately, she was born with laryngomalacia. I'm gonna tell the story of this illness trajectory in another video as well, because I'm sure it's going to motivate a lot of parents, a lot of mothers who are going through the same thing right now. I'll share my challenges and how God helped me to cope with that. But thankfully, I can tell you now that she is completely healed of that. For those of you who came for her 40th birthday celebration, you heard me share the story and the testimony, and I give all the glory to God because our Didi is free from laryngomalacia right now. Just to throw some light, laryngomalacia is a congenital disorder, also called soft larynx, whereby the cartilages in the larynx, for those of you who are not in the health profession, the larynx is your airway, from the nose, it goes to the pharynx and then to the larynx. It's like like when you're eating chicken, that part that is a bit like ring, and it's not so pronounced in chicken, but it is in cow and goat meat and all of that. So if you have ever eaten the throat of goat meat, you see there's a part that is ring. These are cartilages that keep the airway open, so that whenever they breathe in, they can breathe in air because it's open. So for the child who is born with laryngomalacia, the airway is not open. The cartilages are not developed as much as they should at that stage, and so the airway kind of is soft. So when sometimes kind of collapses, it's not opening because the cartilages hold it open like this. So when the cartilages are not there, it's kind of floppy or soft. So that's why they call it soft larynx. And what happens is that when the child is breathing, you're gonna be hearing like what we call, the medical people call stridor. Stridor is like the sound. You hear people like so imagine when you're sleeping beside a child who is breathing oh my god, that's traumatic. Well, that is not the story for today. The story for today is the hospitalization experience and how that taught me to stop judging people. Whenever Didi was three weeks, this laryngomalacia became pronounced. So one day she was sleeping, and then I noticed that it was so loud, like really loud. It woke me up from sleep, but woke all of us up from sleep. And then I remember calling Dr. Mary, my friend who's a pediatric doctor at the time. Hi, Dr. Mary, thank you so much for that night. And then I made a video of her and I showed her, see, my daughter is blah blah. What do you think? So I remember also calling Casey. Casey, thank you so much. Casey is also a doctor, and we all work together in pediatrics. I used to be a pediatric nurse as well. So I was worried immediately. She was having chest injury. There were all signs of respiratory distress. So I had to rush her to the hospital that night. Oh God, it was an experience. And I want to seize this opportunity to thank everybody who was of incredible support to me at the time. Auntie Augusta, thank you so much. Andrea, thank you so much. Adama, Auntie Shade, Auntie Sandra, thank you all so much. All well, everybody. Andrea, you were all my incredible support system at the time, and I would never forget because that is an indelible memory, and I'm forever grateful to you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. Right, so back to the story. So that period we were admitted in the hospital at the Royal Victoria Hospital in Belfast, and yeah, the way the hospital is structured is it comes in cubicles. So like 4 or 5 mothers will be in a cubicle. I think 4, I suppose 4 mothers or 5, depending on the size of the cubicle. So in this cubicle I was staying, it was just for 2, right? Luckily, we're just 2 of us in that cubicle. Now beside me, I had a neighbor who had a child. Remember, my child was only 3 weeks old at the time. If it was in some settings, it would have been in the what do you call it, neonatal, because she was still in neonate. But then when the children were about a section where the younger ones were kept, so there was another lady in sharing the cubicle with me. So this Indian woman, God love her. Oh dear, she's one of the most anxious patients I've encountered my entire nursing career. Like I've been a nurse since 2010. This is 2023, so I've been a nurse for like 13 years. I can't believe it. But I'll tell you this, that lady remains the most anxious patient relative I've ever seen in my life. Like this lady was so anxious. Well, from her level of anxiety, I could pick up that she didn't have adequate health literacy. So she wasn't really like literate health wise. So and then being a mom who is also not well, like I didn't expect her to be as calm as I was, because I understood what was wrong with my child. I understood the treatment plan and all of that, because I am in that profession. Moreover, I remember I still is a pediatric nurse registered in Nigeria, right? So I was very lot calm. I was even doing my schoolwork and stuff, you know. But then this lady who was my neighbor and a primate, that was her first pregnancy. Like it was, well. So initially, her anxiety was getting me very restless. So she was so anxious. She was pressing the buzzer like every 5 minutes. Hey, hey, she would press the buzzer and the nurse would come. Oh, I don't know. He just blinked his eyes somehow. And the nurse was like, oh, I think he's fine. He's okay. And another 5 minutes, she has pressed the buzzer again. Oh, I don't know. His leg is shaking a little bit. I'm like, oh God. Another 5 minutes, and then you know how nurses can grumble. Like we can be very grumpy when somebody is over pressing the buzzer. I am a nurse, so I understand their frustration, because I could see them rolling their eyes when they're coming. So I just quickly knew they were frustrated. And then I was also getting frustrated as well, because she was just, hey, 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 oh my God, oh my God. Like, oh. And then I noticed that she didn't know how to manage the baby's poo, like the baby's what's the word? How do I say it nicely? I'm thinking of the words you don't say it nicely. She doesn't know what to do with the diaper. That even when the baby has had the bowel opening, she doesn't know how to what to do. In fact, she doesn't know how to do with it. She doesn't even know how to wrap the. There's a way you can open a diaper, take a diaper off, and wrap it very well, like a gift. Even that, even the content will not be known or will not even be perceived. She didn't even know that one. She didn't even know how to put the the diaper in a bag. Like, so I just saw a struggling mom. She didn't even know how to put when you take off the pampers, ideally you're supposed to put it in another bag. Most of the bags are scented, especially here in the UK. They are scented bags that when you take off the diaper, you just tie it, tie it. So another person is not perceiving it and put it in the bin. So even when you put it in the bin, it's not smelling. She didn't know. So I knew immediately she was a primate, even though she was an older person. And I'm like, so I was just feeling her frustration. You know how you can't help but be nosy with your neighbor in the world, that you're hearing everything they're saying, you're nearly seeing everything they're doing. You know that there's a curtain demarcating you. And for your anxious person, she didn't want that privacy. She wanted open. Maybe she wanted other people to be sure. I felt so sorry for her, and I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, this lady must be a primate. So I asked my husband to bring me another box of diaper wrap. So I gave her the bag that the scented, small bags that are scented whenever you take off the diaper, because it was beginning to get frustrated. I was just there, look, she would just take off the pampers, she would throw it on the floor, like everywhere was thinking, and we're sharing the it was so frustrating for me. I didn't get annoyed really, because I'm a hard worker. So I understood it from a mother-child perspective. I'm also a mom, and I know how it is for my child to be unwell. And so I got that this thing for her and taught her how to use it. And then she was like, oh, I didn't even know there was anything like this. She was very appreciative, and she thanked me. God love you, sweetheart. And then that side of it was sorted. So the mess was a bit controlled. I was still patient, and this is my roommate or my cubicle mate for how long we're gonna stay in that hospital. Right. So I became a bit curious to know why her reaction. So I got into conversation with her. I started asking her. I told her my own story and my baby, why we're in the hospital, because I wanted to know why she's so anxious. And then she told me a bit of the story of why the child was in the hospital. For me, it wasn't so bad. It was not so sepsis the baby had, or umbilical infection, something like that. But her anxiety was top notch. It was top notch. So she didn't tell me the whole story at the time. So I was like, okay, don't worry, your baby will be fine. Do you have a faith? She said, yes, she's a Christian. I said, don't worry, we'll keep praying for the baby. And then I spoke to her. It felt effective, but regardless, she was still very anxious. So I became a bit worried. I told my husband, I haven't been to the hospital a lot as a patient, but I've been in the hospital a lot as a nurse, and I have worked in pediatric unit for like 4 years. But this maternal anxiety is top notch. It's nothing like I've seen. If I have my way, I will even tell the nurse that she needs some evaluation, because this is something beyond normal maternal anxiety. Oh God, I didn't know the whole story. Oh. So I was kind of judging this lady for her anxiety. I was almost also getting annoyed. But then one day I engaged her in deeper conversation, because the nurses were getting frustrated with the buzzing every 10 minutes, 5 minutes she's buzzing, and then she's pressing the buzzer. You know, buzzer is something you press to call for help in the hospital. I'm sure everybody knows that. And then so I started digging deeper. I was more friendly. I'll get her things. And so I now was asking her, do you have other kids? What's your plan? You want to have more kids? So I was trying to divert her anxiety and to calm her down. We just got talking. And then this lady told me her story. Oh God, God love you, sweetheart, if you're watching this video. So she told me, oh, her childbirth story, her what's the right word to use? Like, this lady was married for 10 years. She told me she was married for 10 years. She's been trying for a baby in this 10 years. And in this 10 years, she had in the UK IVF. IVF is in vitro fertilization. I'm sure in this time and age, everybody knows what IVF is. So IVF, if you just in case you don't know, IVF is in vitro fertilization, is a way of helping mothers who can conceive on their own to fertilize the egg and the spermatozoa and form the baby in a tube and later transplant it to the mom. So it takes a lot of preparation. The mother's womb preparation, hormonal preparation for the mother, and the father is involved. Like, it's a whole lot on the parents. Luckily for people who are residing in the UK, IVF is free in the first attempt, and you only qualify to even get an IVF when you have gone through. She actually enlightened me on this. I don't know if there's any changes anyway, but from what she told me that you qualify for an IVF if you've gone through fertility treatments that have failed, and the only option for you to conceive is through an IVF. So she had gone for an IVF, and in the UK, she told me, I think I'm not 100% sure of this because I didn't verify, to be honest, but she told me that it is free for the first time, or first 2 times, or first 3 times, something like that. So then afterwards you have to pay for it. And at the time she told me it was £10,000 to get an IVF. That's what she told me. I was like, wow. So I gave her all my attention to allow her voice her frustration. So this lady went on and on. She told me she has gone through loads and loads of fertility treatments which were ineffective. And then she tried an IVF which was free of charge, happily, thankful to God. But however, that one couldn't stay. She lost it. She tried another one, that didn't stay. Then she started paying. She paid £10,000 for IVF. The baby got in and didn't stay. She lost the £10,000, lost the emotional trauma, regardless of all the emotional trauma she went through. Second time, she did another IVF, and she went through all the whole treatment again, blah, blah, blah. And then it also didn't stay. Another £10,000 gone. She went through the fourth time, another £10,000 done. And then this one she's carrying was the fourth one that she paid for. Like, she has already lost £30,000 at that time when hey God, like, imagine that. And this lady was a classy woman in a high paying, like, I got to know, like, she told me actually she's an IT, she works in one of the high IT companies in Belfast, and she's like an executive member of staff. So she's on a well-paying job, so she's got the money actually. But regardless, what about the emotional stress? So that, now when she was telling me this story, oh, I was pinching myself. I was pinching myself, and I was feeling guilty for even judging her, and for my impatience, even though I didn't really express it. I didn't express it for her to see, but I know within me that I was getting, like, we're all losing it. Even the nurses, everybody around was losing. Oh God, know the whole story, oh. You guys know, make sure you know the whole story before you listen to anybody, before you judge anybody, before you diagnose anybody anxiety or whatever. Make sure you know the whole story. So this story I'm telling you, this lady, by the time she was done telling me her struggles and the story, I understood why she panicked every time this child blinked. To put it like that. Hey nurse, he's blinking too much. Hey nurse, hey. When you've had that post, you have so much traumas of losing a child in utero. Like this one that managed to get out, you don't want to lose for any reason. By the time this lady was done telling me her story, I I was weak and I felt bad and I felt so much pity. Then I understood her situation, and from that moment, my tolerance level went from 100 to 1,000 for her. Because I understood why she acted the way she acted. Like, who wouldn't? Now, put yourself in her shoes. When I put myself in her shoes, I'm like, God, wow, thank you. Because my situation is not as bad. You know what I mean? Now, look at the anxiety she's even dealing with. But then we all, including the nurses who might have not known, who may not have how to speak their English, who didn't know her history. Because in this part of the world, you don't dig in too much, which, except you need to dig in. But most people don't even bother to dig in so much to understand why people, like, because digging in will help you to even understand why that your patient is as anxious as they are. So that aside, the moral of the story is this: before you judge somebody, before you lose it with somebody, do you know the whole story? Auntie, do you know the whole story? Like, if you don't know the whole story, it is so easy. It is so easy to judge and be annoyed and condemn, and but when you know the whole story, and when you find out the whole story, you feel sorry for the person. You're gonna feel ashamed of yourself for your actions towards that person. And this applies to our everyday life. And to be safe, the best thing to do is don't even judge. Be patient with everybody. I'm also talking to myself in this regard, because I was in this situation, and I picked this lesson that I'm sharing with you today. And I'm like, God, that day I think I made a video, but I didn't get a chance to post it because at the time I was doing my schoolwork. I was also studying at the time. I was also studying at the time. So each time I reflect on that story, this story, why I remember it was I was telling somebody a story recently about the same judgment thing. That was when I got this inspiration to bring this judgment matters to us. How often do you find yourself judging people wrongly, condemning them? And you don't just even condemn them in your heart, you go along spreading this news of condemnation to everybody. How often have you found, like, can you help try from this story, for the morals you've got from this story, to desist from that? If you don't know the whole story, just leave it plain. Don't condemn, don't judge, don't keep your opinion to yourself unless you know the story, unless you know the person's struggle, unless you are in their shoe. Because you cannot, if you are not in their shoe, you're not going to understand. You will not know. So let us make this world a better place, and let us try to be more tolerant of others. Like that story, each time I think about it, it kind of resets. It resets my mind. Like, it kind of resets my brain. Put it to reset. That's what it does. And I was very grateful that she shared her story with me, and it's really helped me. And one thing I remember doing was, because I was a long customer in that hospital. Long customer with divine. Oh God, I was a long customer in the hospital. So one day, because they knew I was a nurse and one of them already knew me, was my student at some point. So I spoke to her. I'm like, do you? Because I see them all whining and squeezing their face and giving off, that small attitude you give when the patient is annoying you. So so I called one of them. So one of them came to attend to my baby, and then she was buzzing again. She was like, oh my God. I was like, so whenever she left, I went to her, pulled her aside, and I told her about that lady's story. And to my surprise, she didn't know. She only knew that baby was an IVF baby, but didn't know the stories behind the IVF. And I'm sure she went and disseminated the information to the other nurses. And after that, everybody's attitude to her also changed, thankfully. Thankfully. So because, and now what inspired that? Information, the whole story, we learned it. So my darling sister, my brother, my boys and girls who are watching me, uncles and aunties, grandads and grandmas who are watching me, please, before you condemn another person or you condemn the actions of other people, try and make sure you know the whole story. Instead of just condemning and judging them or even spreading this false gospel that you are unsure of about somebody to somebody, why not approach the person and find out why they behave the way they do? Because I believe that if we all work together, this world is going to be a better place for all of us. It's going to be a better place. Let us have the attitude of loving, showing love to others, and reaching out instead of condemning and spreading the false gospel. And may the Lord help us. Don't forget to check out episode 2 on Judgment Matters. And if you like this video or you found it inspiring or knowledgeable or informing, don't hesitate to share it with others. Thank you so much, and bye.